RP X, RP Peep, RP Mac. You ain't having no relax. This shit got me tearing up.
What's good, y'all? I'm Jared, back at it with another video, man. This is 10 WWE wrestlers who legit took offense to a segment. This video about WrestleMania and some of the most particular segments that really I can say that wrestlers took offense to it had to be Charlotte Flair and Paige's segment. I can't remember what year. I think it was 2014 or 15 when Paige mentioned Charlotte's brother Reed, who passed away back in 2011, I believe, or 13. I can't really remember. And another one when Randy Orton had to say that Eddie was dead, that Eddie was in hell during his and Rey Mysterio segment in 2005, well 2006, and man, just many more that I really can't think of off the top of my head, but those two really stand out to me. So let's check it out.
It's not just fans who sometimes get offended by segments that are seen on WWE television. Sometimes actual wrestlers can come forward and admit that a segment personally offended them in a certain manner. But which wrestlers were they? Well, join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 WWE wrestlers who took personal offense to a segment. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos.
I think another one, Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose in WWE. He didn't like some of the stuff creatively that WWE had for him before he left.
The Jason Sensation segment. Now, for those not familiar with Jason Sensation,
I don't know who that is.
He's mostly known for doing an impression of Owen Hart on Raw in 1998. The impression, according to Sensation himself, offended a number of key WWE superstars, so much so that Sensation would be released from his WWE contract. The main issue seemed to be that Sensation also did a number of impressions of different WWE superstars, and eventually it began to rub superstars the wrong way, and some viewed it as Sensation taking the spotlight away from them. Whilst appearing on the Two-Man Power Trip podcast, Sensation revealed, "As time went on, what I did started to work against me, and it did start to rub some of the boys the wrong way. Some of the boys went behind my back and kiboshed my hosting job. It sucked. I lost that hosting gig because too many guys complained about using their gimmicks." Number 9, Randy Orton on the Eddie Guerrero promo.
Yeah,
one of the more controversial storylines WWE has ever done is their inclusion of the late great Eddie Guerrero's name in the Rey Mysterio vs Randy Orton feud all the way back in 2006. Orton would make a number of distasteful comments in relation to Eddie in the promo, including one where he stated that Eddie was in hell. A number of WWE talents felt that the segment was completely out of place and Eddie's name should not be mentioned in this way. Eddie had only passed away just a few months prior to the WWE performing the segment, but they couldn't resist using his name in any
I was devastated when Eddie died. I couldn't believe it because I had just watched him on SmackDown
actually Orton himself.
the week before,
Years,
a couple days before
the
actually.
fact that he didn't like or want to do the segment. However, he has stated that Mysterio convinced him that Eddie would have been fine
Ray with the color contact shit. This when he had the color context to match his outfit.
The Dusty Rhodes segment. Stephanie McMahon made a career of humiliating talents in promos. Therefore, when wrestling icon Dusty Rhodes went off script during a promo exchange in 2013, Stephanie wasn't just offended, she was furious. In fact, Stephanie was so offended that she outright refused to do any more segments with Dusty, and being in the position she was in, she had her wish granted. Now, the reason for Stephanie's outrage was because during a promo segment between her, Triple H, and the Rhodes family, Dusty put his hand right in Stephanie's face so she couldn't talk. Stephanie believed that this made her look weak, but fans simply saw it as Dusty putting the billion-dollar princess in her place. Number 7, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, and John Cena segment. A Talking Smack has always been a show where talent can speak freely without being forced to go in a certain direction by a promo script. This was certainly the case back in 2016 when SmackDown General Manager Daniel Bryan revealed that he was offended by a segment between AJ Styles and John Cena on SmackDown. In that segment, Cena stated that if he got fired from WWE, he wouldn't go to wrestle anywhere else because he only loves WWE. This deeply offended Bryan, who went on a mini rant in relation to Cena's comments and stated, "I was actually taken aback and borderline offended by John Cena saying, 'Hey, if this doesn't work out for you, you'll go somewhere else to wrestle.' And he would say, 'I only want to wrestle in WWE.' It offends me because, hey, guess what? I've been fired from WWE twice. Sometimes when you get fired, you have to go wrestle somewhere else." John saying essentially that if he were to get fired, he wouldn't go wrestle anywhere else because he only loves wrestling in WWE. Number 6, Chris Jericho, Triple H's promo. In 2013, Triple H cut a rather controversial promo directed at Daniel Bryan. In the promo, Triple H would badmouth Rob Van Dam, Chris Jericho, and Edge. He stated that they were never the number one guy in the WWE, and he even stated that if any of them were the face of WWE during the Attitude Era, WWE would be out of business. Jericho, who remains one of the most decorated stars in WWE history, would tweet a response to Triple H saying, "Thing is, Triple H, despite your major push, you never were either. Good luck in your future endeavors." Were firmly on the side of Jericho, who had every right to be upset in relation to Triple H's rather brutal and unfair comment. Number 5, Mickie James, the Alexa Bliss promo. The WWE decided to build a Mickie James vs Alexa Bliss feud in 2017 around Mickie's age. This was a lazily booked decision from WWE, especially because it made little sense as Mickie hadn't even turned 40 when the story was taking place. But one segment which offended Mickie on a personal level was when she was given a walker as a gift. This was to imply that she was too old to be wrestling. While speaking to Chris Van Vliet, Mickie would discuss how hurt she was by the segment and stated, "I can never wrap my head around and find it funny that I'm given a walker on Raw in 2017. It's bullshit and it's not funny. I was offended and I said that I was offended. But I'm a professional and as a pro you go, fine, let's see what happens. 9 times out of 10 I was right, but it's already happened. I had to do it just to prove a point. I feel like you should trust me enough at this point to know I'm not an idiot. I'm looking at it through the lens of our audience and where they're at now." Number 4, the Big Show Randy Orton backstage segment. The segment involving the Big Show and Randy Orton at the start of 2021 offended the Big Show so much that he decided to leave the WWE and sign with the competition AEW. In this infamous segment, Orton would verbally run down the Big Show and at one stage he even put his hands over the Big Show's throat. The issue was that Big Show virtually had no reaction. It made the former WWE star look extremely weak, and Big Show was quite rightly offended about how the segment made him look. Number 3, Sonya Deville, the Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch title exchange segment.
This was recently right here.
WWE produced what would become one of the most talked about segments of 2021. They would present a championship exchange between Becky Lynch, who was a SmackDown Women's Champion, and Charlotte Flair, who was the Raw Women's Champion. The issue was that Charlotte had a lot of issues with the segment, so much so that she went off script in the segment and threw her title right to the ground. Notably, Becky was furious with Charlotte after the segment, and she even got into a heated verbal exchange backstage after the segment had taken place. Members of WWE management and Becky herself believed that Charlotte was trying to make her look bad with her unprofessional and selfish behavior. Sonya Deville, who was overseeing the segment, also took exception to Charlotte's conduct. According to reports, Sonya was so offended in relation to how Charlotte acted, she was ready to fight Charlotte backstage for real. Number 2, Dean Ambrose, the Roman Reigns cancer mention. When Roman Reigns announced that his leukemia had returned after 11 years, fans had hoped that Reigns' illness wouldn't be used for a storyline. Sadly, they were wrong, and WWE decided to use his illness to further a storyline between Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who happened to be 2 of Reigns' closest friends in the WWE. In the build to the Rollins and Ambrose match at the 2018 TLC pay-per-view, Ambrose would cut a promo on Raw to promote the match, and he would make a number of comments regarding Reigns, including stating that his cancer return was karma. It would surface years later that Ambrose was not just offended, but sickened by WWE asking him to mention Reigns in this capacity. Rollins also had a similar viewpoint, and he felt like the feud between himself and Ambrose was in bad taste and didn't need to unfold the way it did. And number 1, Ric Flair on the Paige and Charlotte Flair segment. WWE went too far when they decided to include Ric Flair's name in a contract signing segment between Paige and Charlotte Flair. Their segment took place back in 2015, and Paige would deliver the line, "Your little baby brother. He didn't have much fight in him, did he?" Ric Flair was Charlotte's younger brother, and he sadly passed away in 2013 following an overdose. This line quite rightly offended all members of the Flair family, including the legendary Ric Flair. Rick was rather public in the fact that he wasn't happy with WWE for using his son's name in this disgusting manner. Flair even added that they didn't even ask his permission to name drop his son in the segment itself.
That's messed up.
He stated, "I never heard a word about it. I started crying when I was watching. Nobody called me and no one called me today." So I mean, that would indicate that
was in Japan when he was found dead, I think.
10 WWE wrestlers
just coming back from his Japan tour.
To a segment. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.
Alright, y'all, another great video, man. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the video, was that I thought it was Charlotte that was offended. It was actually Ric Flair, but also the Flair family got offended by the segment because that was uncalled for. Because they didn't have to mention Reed's name like that in that kind of light. And just to prove a point, WWE got a slick way of doing stuff to the point where they just to have to mention like people's names and put people in bad light just so they can create ratings for their shows and stuff like that. And that was just totally offensive. And I know Paige kind of probably regrets saying it years later, probably in that moment before she even went live, before she even said it on live TV. But I know years later she probably look back at it and just cringe and like I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have agreed to do this segment. But anyway, thank y'all for watching me. I love y'all. See y'all next time. And let me know what y'all thought of the video. Peace.